Get ready. It's time for News for the Soul. Life-changing talk radio from the uplifting to the unexplained. Join us as we celebrate 11 years of empowerment broadcasts, becoming the #1 life-changing talk radio show in the world, according to Google, AOL, MSN, YouTube, and more. And home to the largest, totally free transformational audio library in the world. All found at newsforthesoul.com. And now, here's your host and the founder of News for the Soul, the one they're calling the Oprah of the Internet, Nicole Whitney.
Hi, everybody. I'm Nicole. We're live. This is News for the Soul, life-changing talk radio from the uplifting to the unexplained, and I believe that we'll have that all covered yet again today. Raymon Grace, he's known for his powerful work in the field of dowsing, and we're going to be doing some interesting work with him on the air live. Water experiment, global dowsing experiment with water during this hour. If you miss any of the show, newsforthesoul.com, all free all the time. That's where you go to catch up or revisit and enjoy over and over, all free all the time. We're going to do the breaks first to get them done so there's no interruptions and we can go straight through, find out all about the interesting work with dowsing with Raymon Grace, and do this live water experiment with you around the world on News for the Soul. Right now, we're back in 2, and then it begins.
Who are you? Why are you here? What is the meaning of life? These burning questions have plagued mankind throughout our existence. How would you like to experience a process that would allow you to have some of the answers? Answers that would cause you to live with higher awareness and deeper authenticity from now on? Well, you can. Warrior Sage is offering an experiential 5-day enlightenment workshop called Illumination Intensive. Regularly about $3,000 to attend, Satya Raja of Warrior Sage is offering this life-changing 5-day course to News for the Soul listeners totally for free. That's right. The tuition has been completely waived for all News for the Soul listeners. Satyan says this experience is so profound, he wants to share it with the world. So don't miss out on this special opportunity. To have your own direct experience of awakening with Warrior Sage, go to illuminationintensive.com now and tell them News for the Soul sent you. That's illuminationintensive.com.
How would you like to learn how to bend metal with your mind for real? Well, you can. News for the Soul is home to the one and only Spoon Bending Kit, an instantly downloadable digital gift that contains 2 hours of audio and visual instructions designed to get your mind out of the way and teach you how to truly affect solid matter just with your thoughts. Find out once and for all how you are affecting your reality with every thought you think. Don't let anything block you from creating the life that you want. Download the newsforthesoul.com Spoon Bending Kit today. Just go to newsforthesoul.com right now and click on the bent spoon. That's newsforthesoul.com.
Nuclear physicist Thomas Campbell, author of the My Big Toe trilogy, is coming to premiere his new workshop. This hands-on experience will explain the origins and inner workings of consciousness. To learn more about this exciting event, go to www.mbtevents.com. That's mbtevents.com or call 704-451-4987 for details.
Are you in pain, overweight, unwell, stuck, or unhappy with any area of your life? Healing from the Body Level Up can help you. HBLU is a unique mind-body holistic psychotherapy for the 21st century. Created by Dr. Judith Slack, HBLU is an effective way to eliminate struggle by clearing mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual blocks to success, so you can rapidly achieve the results you want to live a full, happy, healthy, and satisfying life. Tune in to our next News for the Soul broadcast featuring Dr. Judith Slack, or visit hblu.org right now to find out more. That's hblu.org.
For years, News for the Soul listeners have had a direct experience with their power to create their reality through our exclusive spoon bending kit, a mind over matter training that teaches you how to bend metal with your mind for real. Well, what if you can use that same technology on your finances? What if you can take your same intention power and use it on the so-called recession? Well, you can. News for the Soul has just announced the release of its newest life-changing kit, the Prosperity Kit. We have combined the intention technology of our spoon-bending kits with a decade of research to create a program that has the power to change your financial life. Isn't it time to transcend fear and live the way we intended? For real? Go now to newsforthesoul.com and click on the Prosperity Kit banner. That's newsforthesoul.com.
In December 2005, News for the Soul host Nicole Whitney experienced the most dramatic, life-changing psychic reading of her life. In that brief 10-minute mini-session, she released years of emotional baggage when Carrie O'Connor connected with a recently deceased family member, bringing Nicole a life-changing message from beyond the grave. Since that fateful day, Nicole has invited Carrie O'Connor on as a regular News for the Soul guest to do readings on the air. But you do not have to wait. Carrie is available for private sessions right now. Nicole has laughingly suggested wearing goggles and a helmet for these sessions because of the powerful energy that seems to come through Carrie when she's doing a reading. But don't take our word for it. Experience it for yourself. So pack up your goggles and helmet and book your life-changing session with Carrie O'Connor today. Go to CarrieO'Connor.com. That's CarrieO'Connor.com.
Hear all of our previously aired broadcasts of News for the Soul online at newsforthesoul.com. Now let's get back to the show. Okay, we're back. We're live. I'm Nicole. This is News for the Soul, life-changing talk radio from the uplifting to the unexplained. Raymon Grace is my guest. He's a dowsing expert and native of the mountains of Virginia, and he spent 35 years empowering people with dowsing techniques and how to gain control of their lives. This is going to be a very exciting hour. And if you miss any of it, newsforthesoul.com. This is the first time that we're meeting Raymon, so we're going to find out where his story begins right now. Raymon Grace, welcome to News for the Soul. Oh, sorry, hang on, we can't hear you yet. A little bit of technical difficulty on the line. One moment, please. Yep, it's not budging. Okay, let's all talk amongst ourselves for another moment as we sort this out. Okay, let's try again. Raymon Grace, welcome to News for the Soul.
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. How are you doing today?
Oh, doing fine. How are you?
I am well. I'm intrigued about your story, and I'm hanging on your every word as of now.
Okay.
So where does your story begin?
Where would you like to start?
Well, when did you first become interested in empowerment in general?
Oh, probably when I was just a little kid. When I was in school, I remember one of my teachers saying that Einstein only used approximately 10% of his brain, and I wondered what he could have done if he had used 25% of it. So I set out on a quest to find out what could be done with the human mind. And I still don't know, but I know a bit more than I did. Still don't have all the answers, but over the years, we have learned some things, and we have, I believe, been able to accomplish things that might not have been accomplished before. Among them, it was clearing up water. About 25 years ago, I set a goal to see if I could help clean up the water in the world. And at the time, I really didn't know how to do anything except pick up trash out of the streams and along the beaches, so that's what I did. As time went on, I learned how to what I would call energize or change the energy of a small glass of water. And then as time went on, we found that we could energize that water and put it in other water, and it would change the energy of that water. I'm being real brief, so when I get on, you ask any questions you want. I'm just giving you an overall picture of this. And about 5.5 years ago, when George Norrie had me on the Coast to Coast show for the first time, George asked something I didn't know he was going to ask. He said, we have 5 to 10 million listeners tonight. If some of them, all that wants to, would set a container of water by the radio, would you be able to change the energy of the water? Well, I had no idea he was going to ask something like that, and I didn't have an answer for him because I had never tried this before and had never heard of it. But I figured we didn't have anything to lose, so I said, let's go for it. And after the break, a number of callers called in that the taste of the water had changed. Some of them that were suffering various aches and pains had drank the water, and the aches and pains had disappeared. And in all honesty, I didn't know this was going to happen. Most of my work has been a surprise, and this was one of the major surprises. It was a major turning point in our work because that night, which was the 30th of March of '04, we learned that it was possible to change the energy of many, we don't know how many, but many containers of water all across America. Because to this day, I still get feedback from people saying they were listening that night, and it definitely changed the taste of the water. Most of them, or at least many of them, saved the water, and they still have some of it. And they claim that they can put this in other water, and it changes the other water. Well, that was the plan. So we got to thinking about this. If it is possible to change the energy of water over radio waves, we thought we could probably do it with a film. So we created a simple little video, and we gave some copies to our friends and said, just try this, see what will happen. Well, the feedback came in that they could set a container of water in front of their TV set, play the video, and it would change the energy of the water. They could then put an intent into the water to accomplish whatever purpose they desired, such as making their flowers grow better, to cut flowers they claim would not wilt. One fellow out in California had a hot spring that was full of moss, and this moss and algae, and this hot spring fed into a large pool, and there was algae all over the sides and the bottom of the pool. And I didn't know this man. He just called one night and asked if I could help him, and I said, well, I don't know. We can let you have a video, and you can try it, see what happens. And his testimonial is on one of our websites called RaymondGraceProjects.com. My name is spelled R-A-Y-M-O-N. There's no D on it. And my last name is G-R-A-C-E. It's Raymond Grace Project, Projects.com. And I believe this fellow's testimony is still on there, how that he did this, followed directions. 4 days later, he notices the algae is coming off of the wall and off of the bottom of his pool. And he goes upstream and looks at this hot spring that feeds the pool, and he said it was clear all the way to the bottom, and he had never been able to see the bottom of the spring before. Now, we all know that water runs downhill. So why did the water that he poured in the pool also clean up the spring, which was upstream? And I believe the reason is I put an intent into that film that it would affect all the water it touched, and then that water would affect all water that it touched. So then we later edited this film and made it a lot more condensed and more usable, and put it in a DVD form. And right now, as far as I know, we have done work with water through this film in excess of 15 countries around the world. I really don't know. I counted them up one day and come up with 15 or 16, but I'm not sure I got them all counted. So my goal of 25 years ago to help clean the water up in the world has at least been partially realized through these methods. So you go ahead and ask anything you want now.
Oh, thank goodness. Billions of questions out of that diatribe I shall also condense. You know, at what point should we be having our water as we're talking beside us during this show?
Well, yes, I would do that for the listeners out there if you'd like.
Okay, so we can be having a glass of water beside us as we talk, and is there any kind of process you need to do, or just is it going to happen while you and I are talking?
Well, I will have to do something. I normally do this during a station break, but since we aren't having any station breaks, I guess I'm just going to have to do it just right on the show, but, you know, I can do that, or at least I hope I can.
Okay, well, I can also create a break if that helps you. You can let me know what you want to do.
No, because you and I'll just talk, and I'll just tell you what we're doing. And then you can ask any questions you like. I don't know how much about my work that you know, but let me just to give you some of the bottom lines. My work is really based on some very simple principles. One is that all things, literally everything, is composed of energy. That includes our human body. And the intelligent human mind has the ability to properly direct energy. Now, if you want that simplified, I can do it. Everything's made out of energy, and we can change it. That's the first principle. Second principle is energy is impressed upon matter. And the third principle is energy follows thought. So most of my work are based on those three simple principles.
So here's what my first main question is in your story, you originally set out this intent to clean up the water around the world, started picking up trash, and then the next thing I know, you're working with energy and intent and working on that level. So can you fill in that blank? How did you get led to that? How did you discover this and start working with energy?
I've always done the best I knew how to do with what I had at the time. And in the beginning, cleaning up trash out of the streams here locally, like I remember picking up 13 pickup truckloads of trash out of the river here where I live. That was all I knew to do. And then I learned that it was possible to, by use of the mind and concentration and intent, to change the energy of a small glass of water. And then later on, a group of people took me to a large spring out in Arkansas, and I was told, and this is just what I was told, I did not verify any of this, that due to the livestock on the land and the runoff of the surface water and so on, that the spring had become, or all the springs around there had become somewhat polluted. Now, to what degree, I really don't know, but at one time, the water from this spring had been bottled and sold commercially. I think that had been several years ago. And I was asked if I could do something with the spring. Well, this was rather large. It produced something like 30-some million gallons every 24 hours. It was a small river flowing out of it. Very beautiful place. It's called Blue Springs, right near Eureka Springs, Arkansas. And I went there not really knowing what I was going to do, and started what I would call communicating with the spirit of the water, because everything in nature has a spirit, the grass, the trees, and certainly the water. And a lot of my philosophy is based somewhat on Native American philosophy, because some of those medicine people have been my teachers and my friends, and I've learned from them. And I was working to see if I could communicate with the spirit of the water, and the only thing I knew to do was sit there with my feet in it. I realized that's not a conventional way of purifying water, but I thought, well, maybe that'll put me in contact with it, and I can get some ideas here. Well, the idea that came to me, and I'm just telling it the way it is, was to, here's the terminology, scramble the frequency of the pollutants and adjust the pollutants to the frequency of pure water. Well, that just was an idea that came. I didn't really put any intelligent thought into it. It's just one of those things that kind of hit you in the top of the head. So since I am a dowser, I do things with a pendulum, and for a pendulum I use a .45 caliber bullet on a chain. And I just pulled out my bullet pendulum and started to work there. Actually, all dowsing is a way to help you focus the intent. And I had the intent to, in my terminology, scramble the frequency of the pollutants and turn that into the frequency of pure water. Well, sometime after that, probably within a month or so, I don't really recall, this was back in April of '01, the water was tested by the Nature Conservancy, and the word that I got on it, it was the purest spring they had ever tested. Now, the only downside to this was the water was not tested before I worked on it, so I really can't use this as scientific evidence that we actually did anything, but a lot of folks thought we did, and at least the spring is pure now. What we do have is a case up in Saskatchewan of a well that had a lot of arsenic in it, and the owner of the well asked if I could remove the arsenic, and I said, well, I don't know. I know nothing about arsenic, and I've never tried anything like this before. And he said, well, would you be willing to try? And I said, well, yeah, I'll try. We have nothing to lose here. And now this was water that had been tested by the water department, or whatever term would be, of the Canadian government there in Saskatchewan. And the water that had gone through the best filtering systems that money could buy still contained 46 parts of arsenic per million, and that's an awful lot. I understood that 10 parts per million was the highest accepted safe level. So I did my work on it without touching the water, without doing anything physical at all. It was simply all mental work and intent. And I asked the man, I said, now, you have this water tested at your convenience, and please give me a phone call. Let me know if anything changes. And if I remember correctly, it was about 2 months, because this occurred back in July of '02, and something like maybe late August, early September, I got a very enthusiastic phone call that 90% of the arsenic was gone. And I said, well, that's good. How about testing it again another year or so and let me know if anything changes? And somewhere between 1 and 2 years later, the water was tested again, and the word I got was there was barely a trace of arsenic left in the water. Now, to my knowledge, that is the first time that's ever been done. I had been told it was impossible, but I did not go to school to learn it was impossible, so I just went ahead and did it anyway.
So, if that's possible, and if it's possible for you to work with glasses of water by the radios, around in many countries listening right now, I mean, what are you doing about larger bodies of water, more polluted water? Are you doing projects where you're working on those now?
Well, I don't really have particular bodies of water that I work on. What I try to do is educate people through either these shows like we're doing right now. I have made a DVD on energizing water. I have made another one on helping people put a mental, that is a non-physical, water filter on their water lines. Now, some of these water projects are done through our foundation. It's called Raymon Grace Foundation, and that's their website, RaymondGraceFoundation.org. And we have produced some DVDs for this. I donate my time to this, and we use them as fundraisers to support the work of the foundation. When one of our things, we have a number of projects, but one of them is just to educate people what they can do. I do not particularly want to take the responsibility of cleaning up all of the water by myself, because that's too limited. What we're working at doing is educating other people to do it. And we've made films on it. I have written out directions in one of my simple little books called Techniques That Work for Me. I've written 3 books and probably made, maybe 15 to 18 DVDs, various films on different things. Not all of them are on water. Some are on other things. But our goal is to help people and teach them to take charge of their life and be responsible for it. So I don't really want the job of cleaning up all the water in a foreign country. I am certainly willing to provide the information to people to do it themselves. Now, the thing about it, until we educate people and they have a desire to learn and do something about it, not that much is going to change. Yes, I can probably energize containers of water for your listeners tonight, or today, but if they do nothing about it, do nothing with it, we really haven't accomplished anything. If they keep on doing what they're doing, you're going to keep on getting what you're getting. So as long as people are dumping sewage into the water, throwing trash in it, dumping chemicals in it, they're going to still have to live with polluted water. So if you don't like what's happening, you're going to have to do something about it. And that's what we are working at doing, is educating people that you don't have to have polluted water. You can do something about it, but you can't depend on me to do it for you, because I'm not going to do it. I will show you how. I will do an experiment, and we provide the information, but you're going to have to do it yourself.
All right. Well,
I'm about empowering people, not having people become dependent upon me.
Exactly.
I'm not in the guru business.
No, that's what we're all about here too, is empowerment as opposed to that. So, where do we start as far as this? Let's do this now and talk about the water, and then we can have more conversation. What do we do to make this work?
Well, okay, I need to explain that a little bit to our listeners out there. I have eaten in restaurants all across America, and I have only been to one that the spirit of the water was actually in the water. See, just because water is wet does not mean that it has the spirit of water in it. Water has an energy field that is measurable, just like the aura or energy field of a human body. And according to my measurements, and other people's may vary somewhat, but we'll usually wind up on the same page, the energy field of most water in restaurants would not exceed 6 inches. Now, I used to do an experiment, and still do a lot of times when I'm speaking at dowsing conferences all across America, and I would get a glass of water, set on the table, and have all the people to measure the energy field of it. Now, they did not have to be dowsers. Some people are just energy sensitive with their hands, like they can feel the energy field of a human body, so they could also feel the energy field of water. And it's much easier to work with energy sensitive people because they can tell something is happening. If a person is not energy sensitive, they really don't know if anything is happening or not, so that makes them more difficult to work with. So most of these folks at least had some degree of sensitivity, whether they were measuring with a dowsing rod, with a pendulum, or just with the feel of their hands. And their readings would vary a few inches, but generally speaking, the energy field of water would be 4 to 6 inches. I would then take the water, hold it in my hands, and literally talk to it mentally. But what I was really doing was putting an intent into it. Now, the reason that the water only had a limited energy field of perhaps 6 inches was because the spirit of water was not in the water. Now, what we have learned over the years, and this seems to be fairly consistent, and this is something that is not generally known, so I would like to share this with folks out there, and take it for whatever it's worth. And I did not set out to prove this. I simply stumbled onto it one day, that the spirit of water will not be in water that contains the spirit of greed. So much of your bottled water does not have the spirit of water in it. And hardly any of the city water in cities all across America and perhaps around the world, hardly any of them have the spirit of water. The only restaurant that I was ever in that actually served me a glass of water that had good energy was on the Hopi Reservation in northern Arizona. They had their own well. They did not put chemicals in it, and that was the best water energetically that I have found anywhere across the country. So the first thing you have to do is to remove the spirit of greed. Now, I don't know how open-minded our listeners are out there, so I'm just going to tell it the way it is. And, this is the way I tell it on my DVDs and the books and all the talks I make. Not a very fancy person. I just call a spade a spade. So the first thing we have to do is to remove the spirit of greed. Once we do that, we can bring in the spirit of water. Once we do that, we have the ability to energize the water, and the energy field will expand. Now, I have tested this at various conferences all across U.S. and Canada with several hundred people, and the bottom line is about the same. The distances vary, but the bottom line is about the same. And water that previously had an energy field of perhaps 4 to 6 inches has expanded out as much as 70-some feet.
Wow.
Now, we did an experiment in Canada one time up in Ontario where we took 1 drop of water that I had energized and put in a swimming pool and expanded the energy of the water in the swimming pool from 3 feet, because it was real good quality water to begin with. It come from a well that had not been chemicals added to it or anything. And we expanded that from 3 feet out to 40 feet. And then we did some more work with it and expanded it out as far as 200 feet. Now, the interesting thing was the man who owned the swimming pool was a good friend of mine, and we thought this was interesting that we had expanded the energy field of the water that much, but we didn't know what the practical application of it was. A few nights later, he calls to say that he had a burn on his arm that had not healed up very well. He had burned it while welding, and he had got it in the pool that night just to swim. When he came out, the burn was gone, and there was no scab, there was no scars, there was no sign that it had ever been burned. So he was quite a benevolent fellow, so he goes out and gets some of his neighbors that have aches and pains and limps, and sort of like a sheep dip, runs them in one side of the pool and out the other, and they come out and they found out they didn't hurt anymore. This got to be pretty exciting in the area up there. I'm going to kind of keep it toned down, but they had some pretty decent miracles happen there. Now, this was all a surprise. I had no idea this was going to happen. But one of the comments that people make about the water that we energize is they say it feels lighter or smoother or silkier, or words to that effect. So once we raise the energy of the water, we can put thought forms and intent into the water. And we've had people write us and call us and tell us that they poured it in their wells that had a lot of sulfur, and in a short time the sulfur odor and the taste was gone. We had one of my friends up in Pennsylvania who wrote one day to say that he had cleaned up the bad odor and taste in his son's well, and I wrote back and said, would you mind telling me how you did it? Because the conventional method was to energize the water, then pour it down the well. Well, he didn't do that. All he did was played that DVD and focused the intent on it, that the energy that I was producing on the TV screen would then be applied to the water in his son's well, and the well was 85 miles away. The next day, there was no bad odor and taste in the well. So this wasn't so much what I did, it was what he did. He had the ability and the idea that he could just simply focus this energy at any distance. And we get a lot of stories like this, and frankly, they are usually surprises when we come in, but I'm always very glad to get them. I mean, we could talk the rest of the day on some of the stories we've got, but we got a lot of other things to do. So That's that's what I would do to the audience out there today. If they have some water there, it would take me a few minutes now to go through all this. It's not just that I wave a magic wand and it happens. I've got to go through at least to me, a logical process of getting it done. So if you want to do that, that's strictly up to you.
Okay. Should they be tasting the water before they start?
Well, yeah, I think they should, because we have had people call in that did taste it before we did it, and they taste it later. And I do this every week or so somewhere across America for whichever group of people I happen to be speaking with. I just say, bring in a bottle of water, and take a drink of it, and I will work on it a little bit, and then I'll say, okay, take another drink. And the majority of the time, the people say, well, it tastes better, it tastes lighter, or something. Well, we want to do more than change the taste of it. What we want to do is to educate the people that they can do the same thing. I don't really want them dependent upon me to always do this for them. This is something that that most intelligent human beings have the ability to do. But I think belief is a great factor here. If a person doesn't believe they can do anything, they probably can't. As a saying goes something like this: whether you believe you can or believe you can't, you're probably right. So,
well, and you're talking to a very, open, awake audience. I mean, years ago we were faced with what the bleep and the water crystal experiments out of, excuse me, Japan. Boy, my throat's going away. And we talk all about the power of the mind all the time here. So, obviously, if it's going to work one way, it's going to work the other way, right? So it makes sense.
Well, you got a good listening audience out there, and I like to talk to people like that. I like that kind of people in the audience, because those are the ones that have the ability to accomplish something.
Mm-hmm.
So, would you like to start now?
Yes, let's do it.
All right. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to do this as if I were standing in front of an audience, and all you folks would be listening. So, the first thing I'm going to do is ask if anybody out there has any water that has negative entities in it or demonic forces. And I get, no, nobody has that tonight or today. I keep forgetting what time it is. Okay, it's a little later where I am than it is where you are. So since we don't have that, do we have any out there that has water that has curses on it? And we do. All right. So what we're going to do is neutralize the curses. See, if there are curses on a land, a piece of property, it will affect the quality of the water. Now, occasionally we have actually found wells that have entities in it, and on occasion, a very rare occasion, we have actually found demonic forces in the water. But that's certainly not what you're going to find very often. At least I certainly hope not. The curses I find here, they seem to be fairly strong, and I haven't any idea at all who this person is that has this. There may be more than one. I don't know where they are. But my dowsing system is telling me, yes, we're working on some water out there like that today, so we have to neutralize the curses on the water. All right, now, I would assume that most of our listeners probably are using just commercial water right out of the tap, but I don't know that, but that would be a safe assumption, I think. So what we have to do now is to transmute the spirit of greed in all your containers of water out there into pure water. Now, this is the same way that we did the arsenic. We just changed the frequency of it and turned it into something else. Now, what I want to do now is scramble the frequency of any chlorine, fluoride, nitrates, pesticides, herbicides, any type of pollutants at all. We want to scramble the frequency of those and adjust them to the frequency of pure water. All right, now, I'm going to ask if the water is now suitable for the spirit of water to come in, and it is. So I'm going to invite it in. See, this stuff is just simple as can be. And see, water has an intelligence. Well, actually, everything does. Every atom of everything that exists contains intelligence. And this intelligence responds to human thought. So it's really pretty simple. But it's taken a while. Now, let me explain to you and the audience. I am using a .45 caliber bullet on a chain, and as I transmuted the spirit of greed into water, it spun in a clockwise manner. When I scrambled the frequency of the various pollutants there, that it spun in a counterclockwise manner. I won't go into the why of all of this right now. But when I'm inviting in the spirit of water, this is taking a while. See, with dowsing, you can tell how much energy is required to accomplish a task. If you are meditating on something, how do you know when to quit? Well, I never did. I never did know. But if you're dowsing, you quit whenever the instrument stops moving. And the pendulum has just now stopped moving, indicating that we have brought the spirit of the water in. It normally doesn't take that long, and I don't know the why of that. But what I would like to do now is to raise the energy of that water there for those folks to the highest appropriate level for them. Now, I have a way on a numeric scale to measure the energy of water, but I don't think it appropriate to go into that right now. That's better done when people are looking at a chart, and I can explain things a little better. I'll explain it verbally as best I can here now. All right, now we have the energy of the water there, so let's put something into this water. Let's put in the spirit of love, gratitude, acceptance, and forgiveness, and freedom. These things seem to work quite well. Actually, I recommend that anyone who wishes to improve their life just thank those things. See, everything has a spirit. You probably got a Christmas card that says, "May the spirit of peace be with you." Most people have gotten cards like that at some point in their life. Well, if peace has a spirit, I got to thinking about this, love would have a spirit. But so would hate and jealousy and greed and grief. But so would joy and happiness and all other things. So I concluded that every emotion has a spirit. And since energy follows thought, that is the third principle on which our work is based, wherever we put our thoughts, we put our energy. So if we were to put our energy into love, gratitude, acceptance, forgiveness, and freedom, that is most likely what we will attract. I tell people, if you dwell upon lack and limitation, you're not likely to attract prosperity. So I recommend this to anyone who wants to do any improvement. It doesn't cost any money, and all it takes is about 5 to 10 seconds of your time every morning, and it seems to make a difference. So I found that we could do these things to water. Now, see, if we have the ability to change the energy of water all across America, or perhaps on your show around the world, we also have the ability then to put thought forms and intents into rainstorms. And there's not any reason not to. It's a good idea. You can probably lower the crime rate in your city by doing so, simply by putting in the spirit of peace. See, the capability of the human mind, we really haven't scratched the surface on it yet. I certainly don't have all the answers. I'm just opening up some possibilities that most folks haven't thought of. Now, let's put a good taste in this water for these folks, equal to my spring water or better, because if we have a standard to go by, we can usually bring the water up to that standard. And living here in the Appalachian Mountains where I live, I have a spring in my backyard that supplies water, and it has a very good taste to it. I actually carry it with me in traveling all across the country. I don't particularly like to buy water, so I just take my own water with me. All right, now, let's see if there's something else. Yes, we need to put a thought form or an intent that this water is immune to any forces that would deteriorate from its life force or from its purpose. And let's put a thought and intent in there that it will affect all the water it touches or comes within contact of its energy field, including water within the human body. Now, what we do next, or what I would suggest the folks do, is to take care of that water, and they can put a thought form or an intent into it as to what they wish for it to accomplish, whether it's to keep their cut flowers from wilting, or whether it's to make plants grow better, or whether it's to flush pain out of their body, or cure a rash, or whatever, because we've had reports of folks doing all these things. Now, the success you folks are going to have with this water probably is dependent upon your belief system. And see, our belief system is the dominant factor that controls everything that happens to us. And if we can help people to create a positive belief system, they're going to attract a lot better future than they do if they have a detrimental belief system or a very negative belief system. I mean, that's just a no-brainer. So that's really all there is to it. Now, on my film, on my DVD, I go into 40-some minutes of stories. We interview people. My friend Jeff Jones down here in Bristol, Tennessee, only about 30 miles away, has become quite a curiosity with the work I'm doing, because we have interviewed him on a couple of our films, the Water and also the Prosperity and Freedom one that we have, because Jeff has done something that very few people have ever accomplished. Back in '97, he was in a class I was teaching, and it was where I met him. And at the time, all I knew how to do was energize one small glass of water. So that's what I taught other people how to do. So Jeff asked the question. He said, "It sounds like you're putting energy in water." And I said, "Yeah, I think that's what I'm doing." He said, "If that's what you can do, then why could I not put vitamins, minerals, and nutrition into water?" I said, "I don't know of any reason you couldn't." Jeff hasn't had a meal in 12 years now.
Oh, my.
And we were talking to a group of top doctors and scientists from across the nation about 4 years ago, and they were telling him that was impossible. And I said, "Well, I've got a proposition for you. Jeff travels a lot across the country. He's a very friendly person. Why don't you hang out with him on a trip or so and see if you can catch him eating anything?" I've been hanging out with him off and on trips for 12 years, and I haven't caught him eating anything.
Wow.
So he is quite
really raises so many questions, doesn't it?
Well, I don't think so. Not to me, it doesn't. He simply puts his nutrition in the water and he drinks the water. I mean, that's all there is to it.
No, I mean as far as what else is possible.
As far as what else is possible. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. See, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to open up some thinking minds out there in our listening audience today. And I want these folks to understand, I have not cornered the market on this. I freely share this information. Yes, we sell DVDs. Why? Because people use them. That's why. And it's the best way that we found to duplicate myself is by film. I can't be everywhere all the time, but by putting this information in film, we can reach a heck of a lot of people. I'd like to give my website. It's RaymondGrace.us. Real simple. That's RaymonGrace.us. And
now, have you done any of these experiments with weather? You mentioned about rain.
With weather? Well, yes. As a matter of fact, yesterday I got a very nice note from the Dowsers in Australia. This was the second one I had received, and they sent me their newsletter by email. And this is the story as I understand it. A few months back, and I'm going to guess 3 months ago, the spokesperson for I would use the term spokesperson, for the Australian Dowsers, wrote and said, we are having an extended drought down here. The lakes are dry. They actually sent me a picture of a dry lake bed that no one had ever seen go dry before. Can you help us? And I says, well, I don't know, but I can offer you a bit of advice that might work. I says, let's invite in and thank the spirit of the rain. I also found that the nature spirits had left the earth in many places. Now, I don't really know all the details of why. I just found that they had. So I invited back in the nature spirits and the spirit of the rain. Well, in the newsletter that I just received yesterday, it has been raining there most ever since. And the folks were most grateful for it, and I was very thankful to be able to offer that little bit of help to them. You see, people have gotten so far away from nature. And I tell folks, it doesn't matter how many cell phones, computers, DVD players, and God knows all kind of technical junk that you've got. Your very existence on this earth depends on 6 inches of dirt and the fact that it rains. So I'm just a very simple, blunt person. I just tell it the way it is, and it's just really not complicated. I think most folks have lost respect for the earth because if people had respect for the earth, they wouldn't be polluting the water. I wouldn't have had to dig trash out of the river down here if the people had enough respect not to throw it in. So I really don't think we're going to make any major differences on water until people get smarter. I mean, whenever you realize the importance of water, I mean, we cannot exist without it. It's simple as that. We can exist without all those technical gadgets. Our ancestors didn't have them. But by golly, we don't exist without water. So, I mean, in my opinion, people that go out and dump trash and poison and pollute and sewage and so on in the streams are just downright stupid.
No, you're right.
I mean, you can engrave that in a rock and put my name on it. You're damn stupid.
Yeah. Well, yes, exactly, but this is a real good wake-up call to remind us more about true nature, isn't it? What about human body? The human body being comprised so much of water. Have you done any work in that area?
Yes, ma'am, I have. I'd like to talk about it too. Now, before we run out of time, I want to tell you about one of our other projects now that we have to stop or at least greatly reduce abuse and human trafficking. Now, I don't know if you're interested in that or not. We can just stick to water, and I suppose if the folks are interested, they could go on our websites and find out about that. We might all just stick to water tonight, but well, let me just say this. This work has been used to lower crime rate in villages, even in a large city, and we have used it in some places, to lower abuse on people. On women, kids, in abused women's shelters. We've used it in human trafficking. I created a little DVD called Blueprint for Freedom, and this is on my foundation website, RaymondGraceFoundation.org. I did this because we got results with it, and we've been getting results with it ever since. I mean, I got results with the methods I was using, and I thought, well, the best way to reach people is simply to film it and make it available at an economical price for folks. And it's something I really like to get out there. We actually put it out for free for a couple of months on the internet. And in 3 days, we reached people in over 10 countries with it. And I think we really did a pretty good job there. But let's go back to your question here about water in human bodies. Now, this was an experiment that my buddy Jeff and I did 4 years ago. Now, this is based upon 4 statements that we believe to be true. First statement is, we have all the water in the world. Nobody is making any new water to my knowledge. Second, water has memory. And third, human beings have not been very kind to each other. Well, if those three statements are true, we reasoned that water would then contain the memories of all of the wars, torture, suffering, starvation, slavery, and God knows what all that human beings have done to each other over the course of humanity here on Earth. In fact, number 4 is our bodies contain water. Well, we got to thinking about it, and we decided we did not want the memories of all those atrocities and sufferings to be in the water in our bodies, so by golly, we were going to remove it. So we did. And we realized in order to do so that we would need to lower the surface tension of the water that was within the cells of our bodies, allowing it to release these memories. Now, all we did, again, this was quite simple, all we did was, with intent, we removed the non-beneficial memory from the water of our bodies, and we adjusted the surface tension of the water low enough to allow it to release these memories. Now, I won't go into a long story on what surface tension is and how it works and all of that because we're going to run out of time. Well, what happened? Our bodies went into detox. I mean, we got night sweats, water run through us just almost continually, got a bad case of body odor, got a case of pimples. Our bodies literally started releasing toxin, and we got the physical results from that. Well, I thought this is a good idea. So we started working on helping the people out in the classes that I teach. I said, would you like for me to help you to detox your bodies? And everybody was in agreement. So we started doing that. Now, they did not experience quite the degree of detoxing that we did, but they experienced it to some degree. But where the surprise came in, and this was a byproduct that we never had any idea would happen, I had been teaching emotional release classes for 8 years. And in these classes, people would recall abuse, maybe as a child, or it could have been a car wreck, or maybe they had been beaten or abused or whatever. The worst thing we worked on was childhood sexual abuse because there's an epidemic of it out there. I had no idea until I started trying to help these people how serious it was. And they would relive the experiences. But what was interesting, we found they were reliving experiences that could not possibly have happened in this lifetime, such as being hanged, burned at the stake, nailed to trees, having hands and feet cut off, and all manner of butcherings that people have done to each other over the centuries. And they would literally scream, cuss, kick, and cry, and relive these experiences laying right there on the table. It wasn't any fun at all. But whenever it was over, they would then grab a hold of you, whoever was working on them, and you thought they were never going to turn you loose because they were just so filled with gratitude. Well, we noticed something. After we did that, removed the non-beneficial memory from the water of the bodies, they all stopped screaming. It's been 4 years, and they haven't screamed since.
Wow.
And the only thing we changed was removing the non-beneficial memories from the water of the body. Now, Nicole, this is an opinion I have here that I will put out there for whatever it's worth. It seems that any time a human body undergoes trauma or torture, it creates an energetic imprint upon their spirit. And at some time in the future, that person will unknowingly and unwillingly attract to themselves whatever is required to fulfill that imprint. Now, I can't prove that yet, but that seems to be the way it works. And what we believe is if we can remove these imprints, that the person will then have no tendency to attract such events into their lives in the future.
Wow. You know, wow, we've already run out of time. We're at the top of the hour, and it's been so enlightening. It's been a pleasure talking to you. You're doing great work in the world. I want to give out your website again. Actually, you give it out to make sure we give out the right one.
I'll give it out. I have 3. My commercial site is Raymon Grace, RaymonGrace.us. The next is Raymond Grace Projects. That's Projects. RaymondGraceProjects.com and RaymondGraceFoundation.org. The project site is a non-commercial site. It's simply a way of putting information out to the world.
So for those of you that did the water experiment with us, I'm going to take a sip of my water right now. Ooh. You know, I had good old Vancouver tap water here, and it had that really sort of odor, and it does not have that odor anymore.
I rest my case.
There we go. There we go. Well, it's been a great pleasure, and thank you for being here today.
I want to thank you for the opportunity to reach a few people around the world today. You're doing a good job. I appreciate you letting me in on it.
Well, thank you. You take care, and anytime you want to come back, you can let me know.
We might do this again at some point. We can talk about eliminating abuse if you want to.
Absolutely.
Send me an email. Let me know what's on your mind.
I will. Thank you so
all
much,
right, you
Raymon.
have a good day.
And thanks to all of you. You can revisit this anytime for free, newsforthesoul.com. That's our main website where you find out what's going on and when it's going on at. And, you know, I'd love to hear from you out there, what happened with your water and what you're going to do with it. So there we go. Let's get some scientific background for these so-called miracles and intent and power of the mind.
This is all designed, bit by bit, at whatever pace you are comfortable, to slowly dissolve the borders and barriers you have placed in your mind through certain definitions that you have been taught. And bit by bit, in replacing and transforming those borders and barriers in your mind, you will allow yourself to begin to dissolve and understand you are all connected, all one thing, and you will start to perceive your reality that way. Do not freak out. If you're going to freak in. For the new people, very, very briefly, just so you're brought up to speed a little bit, this channeling began about 25 years ago, but was predicated on a couple of incidents that happened about 35 years ago. On two different occasions in the same week, I had two very close broad daylight UFO sightings here in Los Angeles. Both times an equilateral black triangular UFO. First time about 150 feet away, second time only about 70 feet away. And I started doing research from those experiences to find out what UFOs were all about, what was going on. That eventually led me to exploring other metaphysical concepts such as channeling, and when I attended a channeling class, not for the purpose of thinking of becoming one, but just to do my research, I received what I experienced to be a telepathic contact from Bashar and his people, who explained themselves as an extraterrestrial consciousness. And I have been channeling them for, like I said, the last 25 years. Now, you don't have to believe that Bashar is an alien. You don't have to even believe that it's anything other than a portion of my own consciousness. There's no way we can prove who he is at this point, although he has said that at some point in the future there will probably be physical contact. But up to that point, what we focus on is the information. The information seems to have the ability to help people make the kind of changes in their lives that they would like to make, and therefore that's the reason why we do these channeling. So being here today does not require any particular belief on your part other than the belief that you bring with you. And if you just interact with Bashar like you would interact with anyone conversationally and have the most fun you can have, you'll get the most out of it. Hello, take a day to you this day of your time. How are you all? Oh. I will take that as okay. We thank you, each and every one of you individually, all of you together collectively, for the co-creation of this interaction. Once again, Each and every time your civilization interacts with our civilization in this way, it creates a link, a bridge, and a third reality in which we can, one day, interact more and more closely, more and more immediately. So we thank you for the co-creation of this new paradigm, this new reality in which we can, all together, learn to play.
Hello, Bashar.
And to you, good day.
We have a question from...
We?
We...
Are you a collective as well?
Yes, I suppose.
From one collective to another, hello.
Hello. This question is coming from one of the viewers for News for the Soul Radio.
Oh, all right.
And so I'd like to ask it for that person.
Thank you. By all means, proceed.
Okay. If all things observed changed based upon the observer, then does an individual's experience in life change based upon who is observing them?
Thank you. Yes and no. Here's how I will explain this as we have explained it before. All of the versions of people you see in your life are your versions of them that you have created. You are in communication with the actual consciousnesses that they are, but what you perceive in physical reality is your version of them in your reality. So what you perceive is perceiving you, is your version of them, and their ability to, quote-unquote, change you only goes so far as your willingness to go into agreement with what you have created your version to be giving to you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because basically everything you're experiencing is really your own energy.
Yes.
And so you can only create your versions of other beings that actually exist.
Yes, so when you communicate with them and you understand there may be another idea that you can change yourself to match the frequency of, you will do that at whatever rate is comfortable for you through the version of them you have created for yourself, and you will allow that version of them to, quote-unquote, affect you in whatever way, to whatever degree, at whatever pace you are comfortable with. So you are allowing yourself to change based on what they may seem to be saying to you, but it may only be a piece of what the real being is actually saying to you that's coming through your version, your filter that you have created to represent them in your reality. Does that make sense?
Yes, because it's basically you're having the dream.
Yes.
It's your dream that you're having.
Yes.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. Well, thank you, Bashar.
Thank you.
Hi, Bashar.
And to you, good day.
I'd like to build on this previous question and what you've been saying. How can I then change myself to change the perception I'm having of the people around me, and specifically the ones I'm having, quote-unquote, negative experiences with?
All right. First of all, you start by not labeling anything in your reality as negative, because if you do, all you're doing is agreeing with them and perpetuating that idea for yourself, are you not?
Yes.
Well, then if someone does something that you perceive as happening in your reality or is directed at you, knowing what we just said in that you are creating your version of them, you must be somewhere within your own consciousness in agreement with that idea in order to perceive it that way. Now, we understand you have the ability to observe in a neutral sense, in an objective sense, so to speak, that someone can be being negative even if you're not. But the point is you don't take it to heart if you know it has nothing to do with you. The only reason you would feel affected by it is if you agree that it does. You see?
Okay, well, I want to take it one
moment, not done yet.
Okay.
Want to illustrate a little point, if that's all right.
Absolutely.
Thank you. What is your favorite color?
Blue.
All right. Now, if you were wearing something blue and someone came up to you and said, I hate red, and I hate what you're wearing, you go, what? That makes no sense. Oh, it must have nothing to do with me. Oh, you must be crazy. You must be talking about someone else. You wouldn't be affected by it because it wouldn't make sense to you. You understand?
Yes.
You would have no real emotional reaction to it. The idea, therefore, is that when you feel the emotional reaction of someone's supposed attack, what you're doing is getting them, your version of them, to reflect to you that some portion of yourself feels that way about yourself. Otherwise, you wouldn't react. You would just observe it. Oh, interesting. And move on with your day. But if you react to it, it's showing you, hey, some part of you actually is buying into this as true. So what do you want to do about it? So you say, well, thank you. Thank you for showing that I was not loving all of myself. And when you really start doing that, then you may start to see that someone else's attitude toward you may change, because what you've done is you've changed your version of them in your reality to be more reflective of the fact that you're now loving yourself more wholly. Make sense? The real being may still be going off and insulting everybody, but the only version of them you'll get is the version you've created that is now reflective of the love you're willing to give to yourself, that you weren't willing to give to yourself before. Is this starting to make sense? Do you see what kind of a shadow play this is?
Yes, it's very subtle, especially if you're in the room with somebody and you're not...
Especially if you imagine you're in the room with somebody.
I
Remember, it's not real. It's not real. It's your reality experience. It's not empirically real. It's just a symbol of the reality you are creating yourself to be, of your experience of yourself. So just because it looks like someone else is in the room with you, they're not. They're in their own room, maybe with their version of you. So the question is, what do you prefer to be going on in your room? Because you're the only one in it. Regardless of what it looks like, you're the only one in it. Are you familiar with what you call a fictional drama on your planet called Star Trek?
Yes.
Are you familiar with the device that they call the holodeck?
Yes.
Are you understanding that all of the other people are just holograms?
I understand that intellectually.
I just love that line. It is, no offense, no judgment, it's the ultimate cop-out.
It is.
I understand it intellectually is actually another way of saying I'm not sure I want to get too close to really knowing what you're saying here. It's pushing the idea away. Because you actually do know exactly what I'm saying. Deep in your heart, deep in your soul, it's just that you've been taught to be afraid to look at it too closely.
Afraid to look at the concept or the actual experience of holograms?
Because you see, this is what you're dealing with. This is what most of you deal with when you're in this kind of situation. You're afraid to look too closely at dealing with this because what you've been taught to fear is that what you think these other people are saying about you might actually be true. And oh no, how horrible would that be? You follow me? If you look too deeply, you're afraid it might actually be true. And then where will you be? But I'm telling you, it never will be true. Only what you decide is true for you is true. Is this making some sense?
Yes. I appreciate the reminder.
Oh, all right. Now, where do you want to go with this from here?
I want to go from here because in preparation for coming to this event, I had communicated to you telepathically and asked you to help me discover my blocks from living my fullest potential.
And what am I doing?
Well, no, last night you came to me in my dreams.
Yes.
And I wanted to know what we were doing.
This.
We were doing this.
More of this.
More of this work.
Yes.
Okay, so can you specifically illuminate for me my soul's agreement and purpose in life?
Obviously, this is one of the things you have decided to learn, your self-worth, in the face of opposing opinions. Are you going to believe in the truth that is you, or are you going to believe in someone else's truth that has nothing to do with you? Which do you prefer?
I believe in my truth.
All right. Then you can continue to choose to do so. And anytime you find yourself feeling fearful about what someone else is saying about you or reacting to someone else's communication at you, understand that's another opportunity to feel your self-worth and believe in yourself, and understand that many times when someone comes up to you and says something that seems like an attack on you, what they're actually telling you is they have the same fear, and they're just projecting it on you to give you an opportunity to decide whether it's true for you. And what you can then do is be big enough to hold a space to allow them to find out whether it really needs to continue to be true for them, by loving them back for showing you an opportunity to love yourself more. You see?
Yes, thank you very
Just
much.
me.
Oh, absolutely. Thank
All right.
you, thank you.
We'll talk some more.
Thank you. See you in my dreams.
Yes, that's what I meant. It is that simple. How many other ways can we say this? It is that simple. 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 Take us literally. It is that simple. I'm not speaking metaphorically. We understand that many times when we talk about some of these principles, oh, do this, do that, use your imagination, see this, act on it, etc., etc., etc. We understand. We can feel the vibration in your minds. Many of you start thinking of these concepts in a very symbolic, metaphorical kind of way. No, we mean it literally. Part of the reason some of you have difficulty in getting an effect from some of the tools we have shared with you is that you're rendering them into a metaphor instead of taking us literally. Keep it simple. It is that simple. It is that simple. Do this, get that. Do this, get that effect. Do this thing, get that effect. Do this thing, get that effect. It is that simple. It's just physics. That's all it is. It's just physics. It is that simple. That is in the first paragraph of the first clause of everybody's contract, of everybody's soul agreement. Be yourself to the best you can. That's all you have to do. Follow your passion. That's all you have to do to be who you agreed to be. That's what your agreement is, just being who you are. That's all you have to do. Leave the rest to your higher mind in terms of figuring out how things are going to work. When you choose something that excites you, let the higher mind figure out how that will be all-inclusive of all the things that are representative of your joy. Because if it is really representative of your joy, nothing will be left out. Nothing will be left out. Otherwise, it wouldn't be truly representative of a holistic joy. Higher mind always functions in a holistic way. So if you let the higher mind do its job, stop trying to do its job for it, it will always give you situations and opportunities that will allow all aspects of the joy to play a part and work together in a harmonious way. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Can you then feel yourself relaxing a bit?
A lot.
Thank you. Take a deep breath in. Let it go. Repeat after me. Knowing how
Knowing how
is not my job.
is not my job.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You are welcome.
Hello again, Bashar.
And you, good day again.
We have another question from a News for the Soul listener.
All right.
From one. The question is your civilization at the point of instant manifestation, or is there also a delay, as in third density where we are?
Our civilization, in its evolution, is at the point of instant manifestation, including the instant manifestation of a delay if that serves the purpose.
who decides that?
Yes.
Who decides whether you have an instant manifestation or not?
Again, we are perfectly in alignment with our higher self, and the higher self knows whether or not one of the notes in our symphony needs to be a pause.
So what is the process that you use to do this?
Living our life to the fullest, spontaneously with total trust.
Okay, and does it involve emotions, imagination, and persistence? Is that when an item appears?
It always involves us emotionally because we are always joyful. Our imaginations are always engaged because we are always in communion with our higher selves. And persistence is not required because there simply is no other choice for us.
Right, so it just happens. It's perfectly natural.
It always happens that way for everyone, including all of you. When you know it happens that way for you, you will experience that it happens that way for you. But everything that happens is perfectly what it needs to be to point out to you what you need to look at to live your life in the fullest way possible. It's just that many of you don't allow yourselves to know that and don't label it as such. Other than that, there's no difference between the way we manifest and the way you manifest. We're just aware that everything is that way, and many of you aren't.
So we manifest things here instantly.
Absolutely, don't you? Have you experienced any gaps in your reality lately?
No. So it just is an illusion.
Yes. It's just your illusion based on your definitions and belief systems. But you manifest perfectly immediately. How can it be otherwise? You are created in the image of all that is. You are manifestation machines. Can't help yourself. You are co-creators, instantly creating, instantly creating. What you are creating is the issue.
Well, if your vibration is like in one state, then
Yes.
you are instantly creating the complete reality that reflects that emotional state.
That state on all levels, not just emotionally. Yes.
And then the instant you change for another
Then you create
attitude.
that reality instantly. Instantly.
But isn't there a lag effect on Earth?
Again, the idea of the time lag is what you have created in the formula of your instantaneous manifestation that says you need to experience the mechanism of the creation, the process of the creation, because that serves you in a certain way. So you create the idea of the time lag to experience the instantaneous manifestation in a certain way.
That's really amazing. So we really are deciding our own timing
Absolutely.
from a higher level.
Absolutely.
And so we just get frustrated with ourselves if we think it's not
The physical
instant
mind
enough.
gets frustrated when it doesn't allow itself to trust the higher mind's understanding of what it is you actually chose to experience.
I see.
Does that help?
Yeah, that helps a lot.
Thank you.
you, Bashar.
Comment
Do
on...
you have a favorite frequency?
Yes.
In terms of lighting?
Color?
Yes.
Yes, probably be blue and
Probably.
violet.
Probably. Probably.
Well,
My favorite frequency is probably. Is it your favorite or isn't it? I don't care for the next moment. It's completely different. Right now, this moment, what's your favorite frequency?
Violet and cyan.
Thank you. Now, in any given moment, when you can sit down in a meditative state, a relaxed state, what have you, doesn't have to be a pure meditation. At that moment, simply ask, what is my favorite frequency? Hit yourself with that frequency at that moment in a darkened room, just that frequency. Bathe in it, immerse in it, love it, roll around in it.
Yes.
Lick it up, drink it in.
Yeah.
Be in that frequency. Play with that. See what that does toward allowing you to choose to be the person in your imagination you prefer to be. And you will be surprised to find that that frequency will actually give you everything and more you think you're getting from the drug. Everything and more. Have fun.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Bashar.
And to you, good day.
How are you?
Perfect, and you?
Very well. I loved hearing how the Essassani are always in joy.
Always. We don't have to be, but we see no reason not to be.
That's such a beautiful place to be. I just love it.
We think so. Want to come visit?
Yes.
Well, then.
Saying that everything that we can imagine is actually a physical,
Take me literally.
literal reality, just like
Now,
this
it depends on what you define as physical. Understand that in their own realities, it may seem as solid to them as yours does to you. That doesn't mean that it seems solid to you.
Correct. To them, it seems as solid as this reality seems
As
to us.
real to them, no matter what you may define as solid.
And in those realities, are we, I mean, I can imagine realities that don't make
Yes.
sense.
Yes.
Like, for example, you mentioned...
You mean like Earth?
No, I mean something more bizarre than that. Like, for example, is there a version going on right now where Daryl the Channel is wearing a red shirt instead of a blue shirt?
Yes, of course.
Okay. Is
That's
there a
a simple
version?
parallel reality.
Okay, and then is there a version going on right now where everything is the same except Daryl has a fork stuck in his head?
Yes.
Is that true?
Yes. Did you not imagine it?
Yes, that's
In some
nonsensical.
reality, that serves a purpose.
Having a fork stuck in your head serves a purpose?
Yes. Don't you stick forks and things to see if they're done? So in one reality, Daryl's going, let's see if I'm done. Poking himself with a fork in the head. In that reality, matter is mutable. And therefore, putting a fork in your head is not lethal. You understand?
Yes, I do, and that's where the sort of the nonsensical aspect comes in.
Yes.
Is there another reality where airplanes fly indoors and never outdoors?
Yes. Look, let me put it to you this way. Perhaps it will be easier for you to understand from this perspective. When you physically die and go into spirit, don't you imagine that in spirit you can conjure up anything you imagine instantaneously?
Absolutely.
Well, isn't that just as real?
Yeah.
Well, in spirit, couldn't you say, ha ha, look at me, I'm putting a fork in my head. Ain't that a kick? Couldn't you do that in spirit?
Yeah.
Isn't it real?
Yeah.
Well, it's a spirit fork and a spirit head. It's just as real. Just because it can do different things than you can do in the physical world doesn't mean it's any less real. It's just you can do different things.
Okay, it makes sense to that version, to that
Well, that's
reality.
all you have to do is find the version in which it makes sense.
Right.
Because it's just a matter of perspective. It's just a matter of defining the paradigm in which that is probable and serves a purpose.
Wow.
And if it's the idea that, well, in spirit, obviously you can do anything you want, then that makes it real for you, then there you go. You've answered your own question. On that level, in spirit, you're still dealing with real beings, real consciousness, but they can do these quote-unquote wacky things that you can't necessarily do on Earth, well, at least not without a visit to the hospital.
Mm-hmm. And then that would also say that there are parallel realities going on where everybody sitting in this room right now is in joy, actually feeling the joy that you're talking about.
Absolutely.
And there's also a parallel reality going on where everybody sitting in this room is depressed beyond belief.
Absolutely.
And those are both very true, very literal, very specific, very to those realities.
Yes. You cannot imagine non-existence. Everything you imagine must be a part of all that is, or you would not be capable of having imagined it. Because there is no outside to all that is. So whatever you imagine must be within all that is, or it wouldn't be possible to even imagine it.
If I want to experience the reality where everybody in this room is experiencing ecstatic joy,
go right ahead.
How does everybody feel? Oh, I guess it works.
Yes, it does. And again, remember, whatever you are perceiving is your version of everyone in your reality. So why can't they be joyful?
Mm.
Does that answer the question?
It empowers. It feels very empowering.
It is very empowering.
Because everything is in our lap. Everything.
Yes. Or wherever you want it to be.
Okay.
Does that help?
Very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Oh,
love
sir.
you.
Our love for you as well, sir. You have a very formal reality. Welcome to my reality. Formal dress required. Wearing shorts is fine. Just don't come up short. Just joking with you, because I know you also like humor in your reality. Thank you. Again, when you go back through to the beginning and use the science of the obvious, one thing leading to another, if everything is literally made out of one particle, then any time you exercise your consciousness on the matrix that is created by the particle that, in a sense, is you, then you will understand that any change you make must, by definition, change the path of that particle in some way, shape, or form. And if you change the path of that particle in some way, shape, or form, you have changed everything, everywhere, all at once. Just like all the little gears are all connected, you cannot turn the first gear without turning them all. It can't be done. So, every change you make, any change you make, what? Every change you make, any change you make, no matter how small, changes everything. What do we mean when we say changes everything? More literally, what we mean is every single possible configuration of every possible universe already exists in a static form. What you experience as...
This has been News for the Soul with Nicole Whitney. Visit us anytime online at www.newsforthesoul.com, where you can listen to all our previously aired shows at any time, and so much more. Have a great week, and remember, what you focus on expands.